Well, good morning. Today is lesson 7 in the Miracle series, and it's entitled, You Have Got to Be Joking. And we're going to take a look at the birth of Isaac, the miraculous birth of Isaac, to Sarah and to Abraham. So often we think about things and go, you've got to be joking. That could never happen. You've got to be joking. I think even when people give us challenges beyond our faith, we go, man, that's just, you're having a laugh. There are so many expressions in the English language, you're having a laugh, you've got to be joking. And yet, God is not joking when it comes to having miracles and expecting miracles to work in our life. So today we'll be looking at the case of Sarah and the miraculous birth of her son Isaac. You know, Sarah was a wife to Abraham, the father of our faith, a remarkable woman and wife who stood by her man despite some pretty rough treatment by him. You know, Abraham lied about Sarah being his wife and called her his sister because he lacked faith God would take care of her and of him. As a result, she was taken to be the wife of Pharaoh, the king of Gerar, before God stepped in and rescued her. I mean, an amazing character study just on her submissiveness and trust in God. But we will see how his sin of faithlessness then became her sin. You know, really got to take note, husbands, how your sin affects your wife and your family. You know, if you want a great wife, you have to be a faith-filled disciple yourself as a husband. Yet despite all this, God used her and displayed his power in a personal and life-changing miracle. Actually, it was a world-changing miracle, as this son, Isaac, went on to give birth to the nation of Israel. And the miracle of giving birth to a son, Isaac, at the age of 90, despite being barren all her life. So often we think, you know, the reason why something can't happen is because it hasn't happened for so many years. I think I looked up, what is the oldest recorded woman to give birth naturally? In other words, without IVF or anything like that. Her name is Dawn Brooke in Guernsey, which is an island between France and England. She conceived a son at 59 years old in 1997. Now, you also have to understand the food available to her, the medicine available to her outside of IVF and everything like that. But definitely not in her 90s, etc. And walking around, you know, sort of all the states of Palestine and Israel and Babylon and, you know, on the back of a donkey and working hard and all that sort of stuff. Well, we're going to set the scene. And I think what we're going to see is, you know, you've got to be careful that living with other doubters can be contagious. So in Genesis 17:1, it says, when Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said, I am God Almighty. Walk before me faithfully and be blameless. Then I will make my covenant between me and you and will greatly increase your numbers. Abram fell face down, and God said to him, as for me, this is my covenant with you. You will be the father of many nations. No longer will you be called Abram, but your name will be Abraham. For I have made you a father of many nations. I will make you very fruitful. I will make nations of you, and kings will come from you. I will establish my covenant as an everlasting covenant between me and you and your descendants after you for generations to come, to be your God and the God of your descendants after you. The whole land of Canaan, where you are now residing as a foreigner, I will give you as an everlasting possession to you and your descendants after you, and I will be their God. Then God said to Abram, as for you, you must keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you for generations to come. This is my covenant with you and your descendants after you, the covenant you are to keep. Every male among you shall be circumcised. You are to undergo circumcision, and it will be a sign of the covenant between me and you. For generations to come, every male among you who is 8 days old must be circumcised, including those born in your household, or bought with money from a foreigner, those who are not your offspring. Whether born in your household or bought with money, they must be circumcised. My covenant in your flesh is to be an everlasting covenant. Any uncircumcised male who has not been circumcised in the flesh will be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. God also said to Abraham, as for Sarai, your wife, you are no longer to call her Sarai, but her name will be Sarah. I will bless her and will surely give you a son by her. I will bless her that she will be the mother of nations. Kings of people will come from her. Abraham fell face down. He laughed and said to himself, will a son be born to a man 100 years old? Will Sarah bear a child at the age of 90? You know, God appeared to Abraham and told him that he wanted to use him powerfully to create not just one, but many, many nations from his descendants. You know, in the Bible, a nation is often referred to as a mountain. So God wanted to teach Abraham about, first of all, creating a mountain, because you need a mountain before you can move a mountain. In other words, you need to build a ministry before you can move a ministry. Then God would be able to talk to him about how to move that mountain or that nation. And that's how we get the law, as in there's a nation created, then let's talk about how to lead it. And for us, we get given a ministry and then we learn how to lead it. God made a covenant with him, promised him land, even changing his name from Abram to Abraham to reflect the vision he had for him and his future. So in Hebrew, the name Abram means exalted father. Not a bad name to begin with, to be honest. But then he changed it to Abraham, meaning father of a multitude. So you think about it, somebody sits down with you and go, man, I've got great plans for you. You're going to go far. I mean, it's going to be amazing. All this land, I'm going to give you this land and everything like that. And yet, what was Abraham's reaction to all of this? He laughed at God's vision for his life. And the first thing that came out of his mouth were negative words overflowing from his faithless heart. You know, God can believe in you, but if you don't believe in God, not yourself, but if you don't believe in God, you will remain negative. Negativity is a really wicked sin. In actual fact, I think the situation in New Zealand, one brother just basically got super negative and took another brother with him. Yeah. And the other brother went with him. Why? Because he listened to him. Negativity is a wicked sin. It is the opposite of faith and a godly spirit. It's actually slander against God. It's like, how dare you say that about God? God can't change me. You are slandering God. No, I'm not. I'm telling you my feelings. No, you are slandering God. People are self-prophesying creatures. I love the King James Version, Proverbs 23:7. As a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. If you think you can do it, guess what? You most probably can. If you think you can't, yeah, you won't. People justify negativity, inaction, and proposed failure with the terms like, hey, I'm just being real. No, you're being humanistic, faithless and sinful, making the gospel, the good news of Christ, useless to you. I think about Hebrews 4, it talks about some of the Israelites. In Hebrews 4:2, it says, for we also have had the good news proclaimed to us just as they did. But the message they heard was of no value to them, because they did not share the faith of those who obeyed. You know what? The world is open to us. All situations are open to us if you have faith. And if you don't have faith, nothing is open to you. The sin of faithlessness needs to be dealt with radically. And I mean, when you hear it, there needs to be an indignation. I did a lesson the other day, and Sean said, when we were sharing in our D group, said, what I realized is Joe's angry, and I should be too. And it wasn't about being sinfully angry. It's that indignation of, I need to get upset about this. Too many people just let things happen instead of making things happen with the power of God through prayer and fasting. You know, there's always somebody in a worse situation than you making it happen. And as a Christian, very often they're non-Christians, which puts us to shame. Whether it's finding a house or earning money or whatever it is, people do it without God. Yeah. So how much more should we go, I can do it with God? I think about what we forget is we don't pray about it and we don't fast. I think this recent thing with the house, was everybody fasting to find a new house? No. Well, did you really get God involved? The answer is no. That should have happened months ago. Let me remind you of what sort of God you worship. We worship a God who made everything out of nothing. That was what we started with. The first miracle, creation. He makes everything out of nothing. We worship a God who breaks the rules of nature because he makes the rules of nature. We worship a God who can do anything at any time because he exists outside of time. Absolutely. So don't tell me the results can't change. Question. Today, are you like Abraham? Have you forgotten who God is? Have you lost touch with the reality of how powerful and loving God is in your life? Is your ministry full of problems that you let happen? Or is your ministry strong, healthy, and exploding because you, with the power of God, make things happen? I think my old disciple used to go, Joe, there are people that make things happen and there are people that don't. And he'd just walk away from me. That's all he'd say. So how did it go? How many visitors do you have this Bible talk? None. He said, bro, there's some people that make things happen and some people that don't. That's all he used to say, just walk away from me. Remember, it's because it's just, I get it. There was no big, deep discipling conversation. There was no, it says, amen. And they go up to somebody, normally he's quite clever. He'd go up to the next person next to me who he knew had like 5 visitors to go, how many visitors do you have a Bible talk? 5. Look at me and go, and then walk off. Sometimes that's actually all you need, isn't it? It's not a lot. Okay. God can want to use you for incredible things. However, if you treat his vision for you, your life and your ministry as a joke, little to nothing will happen through you. As Jesus said in Matthew 9:29, according to your faith, let it be done. Yeah. God will have to find somebody else to use powerfully, and God will. That's the scary thing. If you don't get faith, God will get you out of the way. Yeah. They can be in exactly the same situation as you, the same house, the same city as you. God will use them instead of you simply because they have faith and you do not. Are you cynical of what God can do in your life? What he wants to do in your life? Well, I don't think I want to be in the ministry or should be in the ministry. That's just sin. It really is. You could lead thousands if you just believe. It was great speaking to John Coser this morning, saying we're about to go over 400 this weekend. Everyone's like, yeah, this is about awesome. After 400, I can't wait to be. I was like, man, we need to get 100 now. And you know what I mean? It's it inspires you. You could be sat in 30 years' time with kids that are Christians, with their Christian spouses, with you holding your grandchildren and praying with them with your kids. That's up to you. You could be sat in 30 years' time having converted and leading thousands, nations. You could have planted Vanuatu and Papua New Guinea and Macau. And there's just so much open to us. How many other jobs, do they go, pick a country in the world and go build it for me? Yeah. Wow. Do you know what I mean? How many companies you you work for Deloitte and they go, Macau, that's yours, buddy. You go take. Do you understand the privileges we have? I think yet it starts today by doing whatever it takes to get faith to deal with the immediate challenges God has set before you. Yeah. Everything is possible for those who have faith, and everything means everything. Luke 18:27, Jesus replied, what is possible with man is possible with God. So that's why I always look at it. It's there's actually no challenge we have in our ministry that non-Christians aren't succeeding at. Yeah. Non-Christians are finding houses today. Non-Christians are getting money for free. Non-Christians are being given free cars today. Non-Christians are being given money by their relatives. People are being left money in the will from people that they never ever knew. All these things are happening to non-Christians. So for us to have a lack of faith, they can't happen to us when we have a righteous relationship with God is idiotic. It really, really is. Point 1, no excuses accepted. No excuses accepted. What are the reasons you give to God for not using you to perform a miracle? In Genesis 18:9, it says, where is your wife Sarah? They asked him. You notice how, it's funny actually, Abraham even takes on Sarah's name. Do you know what I mean? I'll take on a name. I'll take on the new name of Gloria. I'll take on the name of evangelist or women's ministry leader. We want the name. We want people to go, I want to be appointed. I want to know if you're going to do the work. You can be appointed the next day and not be doing the work. It says, where is your wife Sarah, they asked. There in the tent, he said. Then one of them said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son. Now Sarah was listening at the entrance to the tent, which was behind him. Abraham and Sarah were already very old, and Sarah was past the age of childbearing. So Sarah laughed to herself as she thought, after I am worn out and my Lord is old, will I now have this pleasure? You know, what was Sarah's excuse? But I'm worn out. And look at what or who I've got to work with. I mean, God, I'm not any IMO, but have you seen my husband? You know what I mean? But you see, a lack of faith is infectious, as is great faith when you have it. Here we see Sarah reacting exactly the same way as Abraham did to God's vision for a blessed future. She thought it was a joke. You know what? He laughed at God, and so she laughed at God. Husbands need to look no further than themselves when their wife is doing poorly. You've either made her that way or allowed her to be that way. So it is with our children and our ministry. Today, it's a time to own up to who you are and the impact you've had on those around you. Your ministry is a direct reflection of you. When you go, well, they and if and but, it's down to you because somebody else can go in and change it. The purpose of an evangelist is to go in, take a bad situation and turn it around. That is our job. It's not to look at our situation and go, hey, it's bad. I'm like, that's a bad church. Give it to me. Give it to me. That's your job. So when you blame your ministry for why it's not going well, then you're not an evangelist. Doesn't matter whether you've got the title or not. Now, she immediately focused on why God's promise could not be fulfilled in her life. Well, you've got to understand, we tried, or all this. Negativity is instilled into people by those around them. All right? And it's so wicked and dangerous. However, it is accepted and embraced by the individual because they do not treat it as a wicked sin that it really is. Slander towards God, love in your life. You know, we got over to Taipei and we were speaking to Leo and Evelyn. I said, Evelyn, you are a remarkable wife. You are encouraging. She's super sensitive when she sees Leo being down. She's a remarkable wife. And I said, so I've got to ask you, you know, obviously you're godly and you read your Bible and everything, but why are you like that? Was your mother just this amazing wife? She said, no, absolutely not. She was the complete opposite. And I decided not to be like that. See, that's sometimes a decision we need to make. We need to go like, I've not had a great example, but one thing I'm sure of, I am not going to be that. So what do you learn from that? It's a decision. Yeah. It's a decision. You know, like with Eve, it starts with, did God really say that? Did God really, you know, say I should be in the ministry? Well, have you noticed you're actually in the ministry? Yeah. Does that make sense? That's like going onto a soccer pitch for Manchester United and the ball comes to you. You go, should I kick it? I mean, am I meant to kick it? Am I chosen? You're on the field, for goodness sake. Kick the ball. Okay? But that's how it starts. And it ends up with our relationship with God being damaged and for some even destroyed completely. That's why people fall away. It can start with, you know what? I don't believe I can raise special. That's the negativity. And then it goes, you know what? I think it's unfair to give special contribution. Forgetting that all of us were saved by somebody else's special contribution. Sure. Your improbability and your weaknesses are actually why God chose you. I love our shepherds. They're so radically different. We always joke about just how great and how different they are. But we were talking about people's strengths and weaknesses, and without that, Obed is this great encourager, and he thinks the best out of people. And we were talking about sheep and shepherds, and actually in Israel's time, sheep looked exactly like wolves from a distance, okay? Because wolves were white and everything like that. And I said, Obed would go, yeah, that's most probably not a wolf. Whereas Jesse Cross would walk up to it and go, oi, are you a wolf? Do you know what I mean? But without Obed's strength and weakness and Jesse's strength and weakness, does that make sense? There wouldn't be this great potential. And then you've got, Lennox with his calmness and in all situations. but you're chosen because of who you are.
Yeah.
Does that make, and you've got to understand it. So, Sarah goes on, but I'm worn out. Here we see Sarah's emotional excuse. And to her, this excuse seems understandable and real. I mean, what does that actually mean? Had she stopped having her period? Maybe for 40 years she goes, well, I've not had a period for 40 years, so how can I even have a baby? She was worn out, 90 years old, way past the fact that anybody could have a child. How do you feel about your life? Do you feel worn out and tired? Believe me, this is the least hardworking you will ever have to work in your life. Let me just tell you that. Okay, I presume Sean and Tegan will have more babies. Okay, so if you think it's hard now, it's going to get harder. Most of you are not married, or if you are, you haven't got kids. So actually your schedule is really easy right now. So you have to get out of that mindset. But how do you feel about your life? I'm worn out. Why? Because you go up at 5 o'clock twice in a row. I mean, honestly, that's how some people think. They say you're as young as you feel. Well, in the spiritual realm, that is definitely true.
Yeah.
Actually, as you get older in the spiritual, the more you work, the harder you work. I absolutely sleep less. Kerry sleeps far less now than we did when we were young married. Because you go, there's a greater need to be awake. What about, look at what I've got to work with. Hebrews 11:12 says, and so from this one man, and he as good as dead, came descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as countless as the sand on the seashore. I wonder how, Abraham here is described as good as dead. I wonder how Abraham felt about that. Okay, maybe where did they get that expression from? Maybe it was like, you know what Sarah says about Abraham, man, he's like a dead man. I mean, he's always falling asleep in the sermons, and do you know what I mean? We have to prop him up and give him some of that sort of Arabic coffee to get him going, and she's like, Lord, I'd love to believe this, but I'm up for it. But my husband, let's just be honest, he's as good as dead. How you view your life, the tools you have around you to help you achieve God's vision in life is up to you. That's up to you. Your living situation, your marriage, your household, your career, your bank account or lack of bank account, your ministry, your Bible talk. Do you feel like one or most of them are as good as dead? Great. That's why God chose you. When we look by sight at the facts in our life, we can find every faithless reason for things not to happen in our life. Every faithless reason. Because you're looking at it in a humanistic way. I cannot find a partner in the church because I don't see one in the church. Well, geez, there are 8 billion people on the planet. And people getting baptized, I don't know what it is now, every 2 hours? Okay, so there's 12 baptisms a day. You're saying that one of them couldn't be your husband? Well, I don't know him. It's great to see Jessica, Salvador, who came over here to date Eric. Okay, and that then split up. She then went on a poxy tiny little mission team down to the literally ends of the earth in New Zealand, which is actually one of the ends of the earth, and nobody there for her. But some brother got wind of her, etc., whisked her off her feet, and then she got we get so in a box. So in a box. I think about one of the main reasons why people are aren't dating is just they're picky. You heard the analogy of the shop for spouses. You heard that? Okay. You've been that? Okay, yes. The analogy of the shop for spouses. So the shop opened up for spouses. There was a long queue. Went, great, I can find myself a spouse. And they said, so you get in the reception, said, okay, I don't want to find a spouse. I said, well, that's great. We have 5 floors here. Okay. And there are spouses on most of the floors, etc. But there's one rule. Okay. You go up each floor, and on every floor, you can choose whatever you want, and then you can go. But as you go up the floors, you can't come back down. So in other words, if you find somebody on the first floor and then the second floor, and you can't, so you can keep going up, but you can't come down. Okay, so this person goes in, and first floor, there's all these people there, and it just says all these people have a relationship with God. That's really great, but I got a bit curious. Okay, so went up on the second floor. And it says all these people have a relationship with God and a job. I'm like, wow. Okay. I wonder what's on the next floor. All right. And then, so we're on the third floor. It says all these people have a relationship with God, a job, and go to the gym. I went, wow, I'm a bit curious. I think I want to go up. So, okay, so out the fourth floor, it goes, all these people have a relationship with God, have a job, go to the gym, and are good looking. I went, wow, I've got to push my luck. Okay. And then went up to the fifth floor. And then they saw all the other single people in the kingdom. Oh. With no sign. And you see, the problem is people get so picky about what they want. And when you have that attitude, then you don't see the miracle. Yeah. You say, well, I want more, I want more, I want more. And often the miracle is right in front of you. Yeah. You know, I can't be fruitful because I've never been fruitful. I love the story when Margot was here going on the New Zealand mission team. She hadn't been fruitful in 20 years, all of her Christian life. And so what did? We got her on the mission team, which meant she had to evangelize despite her illnesses from midday to 5 p.m. every Saturday. She evangelized because the rule was if you're not fruitful, you can't go on the mission team. And she was fruitful after 20 years. Wow. I can't get a better job or better finances. I think it's just ridiculous. You can earn money all the time. I love Len and Kira with their special contribution. They've given their special, but they've got this competition going. Like they've each got $1,000 and see how much they can multiply it so they can sell more and more. And this became contagious. So then Manny goes to Lennox, and then Lennox is mentoring Emmanuel about how to sell carpets. And in our house now we've got carpets somewhere and flogging everything around there. But you see how his faith is contagious because there's money absolutely everywhere. Yeah. You know, the church can't double this year. I was really challenging Chia, bro, what is the difference between what's happening in Hong Kong and how you build that church and what's happening in Crouching Tiger 2? You're the same person. What's the difference? It's you don't believe China's open. That's it. And I said, but here's the thing. Kerry and I went with Dean and Audrey. First day we went there. Went into a hotel that was chosen by Dean's mum. We hadn't got a clue where we were going. When we came out of the hotel, we started praying, God, show us where you want to go. We walked across the road, literally 10 yards to look at a bookshop. I noticed a Jewish massive candle down, 4 shops down. Went in there. We found a Christian bookstore with a secret place around the back for where they were holding underground churches. The person behind the counter spoke English, and we were in a Bible study within an hour. Wow. And I said, so if a guy that can't even speak Mandarin can go in and find a Bible study in an hour, why can't you? And why did God do that? Because I'm awesome? No, because there should be no logical reason why I should be able to find a Bible study within an hour. But that's the whole point. He chooses you to show how powerful he is. Yeah. And we started having church services there in about 2 weeks afterwards. You know, I think about what excuses we make. When we were going to Taipei, we met this Mormon, so he was like a 40-year-old Mormon. And we were talking about, I thought he was speaking Chinese, so I was speaking to him, I had this really long conversation with him. And I said, just tell me about what it's like on the mission field. And he said, well, as a young man, I was dropped into rural Japan. Didn't speak a word of Japanese. Not a single word of Japanese. But we were taught to evangelize from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. And from the 1990s, where they had very few Mormons there, it's now a movement of 100,000 in Japan. They don't have the gospel. They don't have biblical faith. All right, they're teaching a false doctrine, and purely through hard work. They look at it and go, I don't speak Japanese. I'm not even going to a major city, but we believe that we can convert people to Mormonism. So if non-Christian false teachers can do that, what more can we do with the power of God? Yeah. You know, we are self-prophesying creatures. What happens is what we believe will happen. If we believe, we go after it with all of our heart, and God rewards us. Hebrews 11:6. It's funny, I was asking Raymond, who I'm studying the Bible with, I said, what do you believe? He says, and I mean, we hadn't started studying the Bible. He said, well, I said, do you believe in a God? I said, well, this is what I believe. He said, I believe there is a God, and he rewards you. He's a rewarding God. If you put him first, you reward him. I went, that's amazing. And I said, look at this verse, Hebrews 11:6. And without faith, it's impossible to please God. Because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and then rewards those who earnestly seek him. I said, you have just defined faith. And he got it. I was like, man, I'm impressed with you. You know, we do not believe. If we don't believe, we stop trying and get hard-hearted. So again, Hebrews 4:2. We've had the same good news proclaimed to us, but it's of no use to us because we don't have faith. As Christians, you've got to get used to, we live by, not to live by sight, but by faith. I think, you know, we've got to plant 3 mission teams this year. I haven't got a clue. People keep asking me, who's leading it? I said, I haven't got a clue. I haven't got a clue yet. And people get freaked out. Well, where are the mission team numbers and who's going on? I don't care. I don't have to see it. I just have to believe it will happen. Yeah. Hebrews 10:38. But my righteous one will live by faith, and I take no pleasure in the one who shrinks back. But we do not belong to those who shrink back and are destroyed, but to those who have faith and are saved. There are only 2 types of people. Those going forward with faith and those shrinking back. Those are going, I'm up for it, and those are going, I'm not up for it. Honestly, some of the people we study the Bible with have more faith than us sometimes. Okay, so we have, like I said, this guy Raymond said, you need to move house and find a new house. Okay, that's what I need to do to become a Christian. They have no problem with it. And yet we struggle with those things. Yeah. You know, it's time to get your life and your ministry back on track. It's time for dating couples. I mean, goodness, we've had some of the most unlikely people get girlfriends in the last 2 months. Really? Okay. And they're people that had, to be honest, some real challenges and problems. Pay rises, promotions, new jobs. Okay. There are always people getting pay rises for no spiritual reason. How much more so if we help our guys look for them and pray for it? Lots and lots of fruit. I mean, it's amazing how many people are coming around at the moment. But it's not because we're suddenly doing this and this. It's all to do with God. Yeah. You know, why? Why do I think we're suddenly exploding? The real thing is God goes, if you are going to plant these mission teams and keep talking about it, I better give you the members. Yeah. All right? But he goes, I appreciate your faith, so I will renew your members. That's how it works. It's not the other way around. It's not, I'll see if we grow and then we'll see if we plant people. That's not what you do. You go, we're planting them. That's it. Even if we shrunk 20, we would still be planting them. Cut the church in 3 and off you go. You know, you've got to get faith today or get out the way. Get faith today or God will find another who will find a way. And that's just the plain truth. Point 2, the facts change when your faith changes. The facts change when your faith changes. The root problem is that we need to see life through God's eyes, not our own. Hebrews 11:11 says, and by faith, even Sarah, who was past childbearing age, was enabled to bear children because she considered him faithful who had made the promise. And so from this one man, and he as good as dead, came descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as countless as the sand on the seashore. Now, Sarah changed. This is the big thing. She made a decision to change and to take God at his word. What enabled Sarah to be used by God? Able to do the seemingly impossible. She considered God to be a faithful God. That whatever God said would happen would actually happen. So where is all your insecurity based? It's based in you. Where is all your lack of confidence? It's based in you. And that's the problem. You just are consumed with you. Honestly, I don't have time to think of myself. I really don't. And it's a chicken egg situation. You're either out there cranking and you don't have time to think about yourself, or you think about yourself all the time so you don't get out there and crank. The way to actually not sin is to be too busy to sin. I was talking about this with Raymond. I said, we went to Light and Darkness today. I said, to be honest, I just don't have time to sin. I said, because if I say something negative, if I say something negative about June, and then June tells Marin, then Marin challenges me, and then I've got to apologize to him, and I've got to apologize to Marin, then we've got to get together and resolve it. I just don't have time to do that. I said, sin is so time consuming. Marin went, yeah, that makes sense. I better not sin. Does that make sense? But honestly, sin is so time consuming. Yeah. I think about, that was the truth, and now it was going to be her truth. As God does not lie. She went, I'm going to believe what God says. I'm not going to believe my emotions. The root issue lies that we listen to Satan's lies and self-deceive ourselves in believing that our emotions speak the truth rather than God's will. Well, I feel. I really don't care how you feel. I mean, we've got to validate our feelings, but in terms of, am I going to buy into your feelings as the truth? They're irrelevant. I mean, we've got feelings and we've got to go and pray through them. But honestly, how much value do you put on your emotions? Too often we have faith in everything else but God and his word. We have faith in our leader. Well, I'm in Joe's ministry. It'll crank. I am not God. Or in our Bible talk. Oh, we're in, I know, Parramatta, and Parramatta's more open. Or the number of disciples. Well, we've got some rich people, so special we can always make it up. All those things are not faith in God. Yeah. We have faith in a new year. This year will be better, because suddenly it became January the 1st. Our miracle list has no power in and of itself. If you go and say, well, what made all the difference? Well, we had a miracle list. Miracle list does not equal God. Yes. Okay, it's a tool. It's not God. We have faith in our talent or our ability to work hard, the amount of telephone numbers we have in our phones. When you study the Bible with people, it's not you that converts them. I think too often, we study the Bible with someone and say, well, they did discipleship and they don't see it, and how are we going to change them? They're not open. If you've done seeking God, the word, and discipleship properly, they're not open. God is telling you, they don't get it, go find another one. All these and having faith in these will leave us frustrated and empty, as only God can give us the victory we seek. I think about how frustrated Mason and I got on that first year of evangelism. We were evangelizing our brains out at UTS, 18 months in, and where was the fruit? And then Kerry goes and looking after kids, doing all the great things, goes and has a haircut and was fruitful. Man, we were ticked. In fact, we're out here all these hours. She's, at home looking after kids. I'd much more prefer to do that and all that sort of stuff. And she just goes to hairdresser. And you see, it's not about how much you evangelize. It's about God. Yeah. God goes, Kerry's a righteous mother. Kerry's a righteous wife. So I will bless her with some righteous fruit. We were so ticked. I remember sitting with them at UTS going, dang, we weren't sad for Kerry. We were sad for ourselves. Do you know what I mean? And Mason gave up 2 weeks before he was fruitful. 2 weeks, but if he just stayed that extra 2 weeks, he'd have been personally fruitful. And the direction of his life would have changed forever. Your prayer life and fasting before the Lord reflects your true passion and level of desire for things, not your words. So, all these problems, did you fast for them? Did you get everybody fasting for them? No? Well, it's not surprising. You know what you did? You relied upon your own talent. You said, I can make it happen. Then things didn't happen, and guess what? You went, it's unfair. God goes, no, you just weren't spiritual. God made a promise to Sarah that despite her age, she would bear a child in her 90s, despite the realities of her medical condition. Remember, it's a miracle we're looking at. And it's a miracle we're looking for. And guess what happened? It happened. She got pregnant. Our whole faith and life is based on this promise. Do you understand? Without Isaac, there would be no Israel. There would be no Christianity. Yeah. So understand that. If she hadn't repented, there would be no Israel and there would be no Christianity. Without your repentance, there will not be fruit and there will not be countries planted. Macau, Papua New Guinea, it won't be planted. Yeah. The impact of your sin or your repentance is global. Our whole faith and life is based on this promise. The impact of you getting faith today is that nations will be changed or will not be changed. You will be mountain creators and mountain movers. I love Scotty. I still remember when his father passed when we went over there. And I took this picture of him moving the mountain of faith. I've still got it for my faith book. And there's him, and we're on the beach, and I took 100 photos so that his hand was doing this, and the mountain was behind him, so it looked like it was pushing it. But we just prayed. You've got to understand, we went there to study the Bible with his dad on a funeral. Yeah. We didn't waste the opportunity. We sat on the beach and we prayed, God, bring the church to Samoa. Little do we know, a year later, that's exactly what God would do. Yeah. And that's it. Your faith produces nations. I think now his family, Netta's a Christian and so many more situations. I think about Eric. Here's a kid who's from the back streets of LA. I mean, Eric would have been a guy you walk past on the street. He goes over to not only be a missionary here, he goes to Hong Kong and he goes to Samoa, and he is the first human being to be personally fruitful in the history of the world on the island of Samoa. Yeah. The first person ever. Now, no matter what Eric does for the rest of his life, he can have that. Yeah. You know, I remember an interview with Usain Bolt. They said, you know, are you happy you're the fastest guy alive? He goes, no. He said, I value my Olympic medal far more. He said, because there will always be somebody in the future that will be faster than me. But nobody can take this gold medal from me. In the same way, nobody can take that fruit away from Eric. There'll be many more people that evangelize and all that sort of stuff, but nobody can take that privilege away. You could be the first person fruitful in that nation in the history of the world. And tell me you don't want to be in the ministry. It's time to be honest with what you do and what you don't believe. You must sort out in your life the promises of God you do believe and the ones that you do not. Then you need to tackle exactly why you do not believe those you do not believe and what is going to make you believe them. You actually have to tackle your sin. Not get depressed. Just go, here's it. Just like when we start the Bible with people. Sexual immorality is a sin. Okay, I will repent of it. There's no psychoanalyst about why I did sex, or it went, I'm male, I do pornography, that's why I do it. We don't expect them to get down on themselves, flagellate themselves. They go, this is what happened. So you're negative. So you're moody. That's because you're human. Now what are you going to do? Yeah. A lack of faith can be completely illogical scripturally, but totally real in our emotions. And that's the problem. Even some of the apostles, after doing personal miracles, faced with the facts of Jesus resurrecting and having him stand in front of them after his death, doubted. One of my just laughable scriptures. Matthew 28:16. So Jesus has died. He's raised from the dead. Not only have they seen Jesus resurrected, they've seen Jesus do the miracles, they've done miracles themselves. Then he appears to the 11 apostles. All right, and so they've even seen what happens when you get faithless like Judas. So, I mean, they've been taught everything, right? Wow. It says, Matthew 28:16, then the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain they saw where Jesus had told them to go. When they saw him, they worshipped him, and some doubted. So at least 2 doubted. Why? They didn't doubt that he was standing in front of them. They didn't doubt the miracles. They doubted whether they wanted to follow Jesus. Because they go, if I really believe this, I'm most probably going to be crucified. So the lack of faith is rooted in what? Well, the truth, the fact that the ministry and our life can only flourish when we buy into the fact that it takes hard work, persecution, and possibly death. You know, going and turning around some of these churches, it's really easy. I just get everybody's schedule out. I look at a schedule and I go, I know why it's not cranking. You know, you check for the sin, but you just go to Taipei. I went over there and great people, great housing and like that, got out the schedules. Wow, you have set vans on for an hour and a half. So this is really, really easy. Let's get out everybody's schedule. Right, you don't come off this campus till 9 o'clock at night. Everybody, I work all day. Well, I don't care. You're on a mission team. Matthew 28:18, then Jesus said to them and came to them and said, all authority on heaven and earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples. What is the solution? Get out there and crank. Yeah. That's it. Going into the East. What's the issue? Get out the schedule. People aren't evangelizing. They're not out there till 9 o'clock. I mean, the East is historically our most fruitful thing. It's really easy. So I'll get somebody who I know will obey me. Paul, I'm hiring you. Within a week, he's like, I've arranged to work from home so I can get on campus straight away. I've negotiated with my boss. I'm working from home so he can walk from 4 p.m. straight from work in his home, straight on campus. It'll crank. And all I've done is replace one person. Somebody that is going to be obedient and evangelize till 9 p.m. at night. Already, last night they were out. One person's faith can change everything. You know, how hard would it be to carry a baby after you had them at 90 years old? You think about it. It's not just having the birth. But think about it, 90 years old, you've got to nurse the baby, give it milk, Sleepless nights, and it's one thing to do it in your 30s, it's another thing to do it when you're 90s. The emotional pain that comes with children and all their emotions. That means a teenager when you're 105. Oh my goodness me. Do you know what I mean? Like now you're starting to get practical, 105, and now you're trying to sort out a teenager. Nearly all lack of faith is based on not wanting to face the truth of what it will take to achieve that for which you truly desire and want. So we do not claim the faith we desire. I think going to Hong Kong, again, it was just really easy. I got everybody's schedule out. I said on Sunday, how many people did you study the Bible with? Oh, well, it's a little bit of a short time between church and leaders, and then I get with a disciple. I go, so you actually don't study with anybody? I said, there needs to be a study before church, a study after church, a study after leaders. Everybody, 3 studies a Sunday. All of a sudden, there were 3 baptisms. It's not hard. It's just hard work. Most people in life are consumed with convincing others that the lie they believe about themselves is true, that they simply cannot hear the truth at where they're at. Remember, when you are speaking, you have stopped listening. It's as simple as that. When you are mouthing off why something can't happen, you're not listening to God. Faith is really simple to understand. Hebrews 11:1. Faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we don't see. It's really easy. You figure out what you want, what you hope for. Write down, proclaim it to your friends, write it on a wall, write it on a miracle list. Put it somewhere where you can see every day. Then you go after it, you pray for it. So my 2 goals are really, really simple. It's to get down to 95 kg. All right, everybody knows it's on the miracle list. It's going down, giving up sugar, giving up bread. Okay, I've lost 6 Ks already. And then my book. So next Monday, I'll have time to start my book. I've got most of it already written. It's simple. You just proclaim it. This is what it is. Write out all your doubts and why you believe it may not happen. The obstacle, the challenges, the threats from Satan. Then come up with a plan to demolish those obstacles with scriptures and an action plan attached to those scriptures. It's really that simple. I think you really have to just get a plan of faith. Joshua 21:45. Not one of all Lord's good promises to Israel failed. Every one was fulfilled. Now just sit on that for a second. There is not a single promise in the Bible that has ever failed any human being. There are only been human beings that have failed. Not a single promise. So you get a promise of God in a scripture. You attach it to your desires' hearts, and you go after it knowing that it's going to come true, not because of who you are or who you aren't, but because of what God says. Yeah. So Psalm 37:4, take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Now, we can use this for the big things, and we can use this for the little things. So I like the happy car, right? And you butchered the happy car, or somebody I gave it to. So my little happy car, I bought it, okay. So I've been looking for a Daihatsu, okay, and they're pretty hard to find. And I'm, Lord, please, and I'd love one of these, and they're hard to find. And on Australia Day, this lady pulls up in front of me in a green GTI Daihatsu Sirion. So I go over to her with the dog. I said, excuse me, that's not a Daihatsu Sirion, is it? She said, yes. I said, it's not an automatic, is it? She said, yes. I said, you're not looking to sell it, are you? She goes, funny you should say that. So I get a number and I showed her Facebook that I've been looking for one, so I'm not some mad old man, okay, like this. And then I take pictures of it and everything like that. I go, Lord, wow, this could be really amazing. And then I just text her and then I just leave it because I don't want to be some stalker. You know what I mean? Like this. I leave it and I tell Carrie, I got some advice and, we came up with an agreement if Ali didn't want it and all this sort of stuff. And then she texted back and said, yeah, I want to sell it. So I'm going to go and have a look at it tonight. No. Now, if it's not right, it's not right. However, even if I don't decide to buy it, do you see how the desires of your heart God will give you? Even the silly, stupid things. Yeah. So I'm not saying I'm going to buy it. But the Lord's like, if you want that sort of thing, really, I'll provide the opportunity. Doesn't mean you then have to go and buy it. But if God will do those tiny little things, how much more fruit? How much more miracles? Okay. What promise of God do you not believe today? You cannot outgive God. You can't. Luke 6:38. Give and it will be given to you. A good measure pressed down, shaken together and running over will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. I've been trying to get on top of Solomon, and he said he forgot where his sin was. But basically before Christmas, I told everybody, you got to get on top of your special. And he didn't, and Jordan did. And then there was another lesson I did, and he confessed, I'm sorry, I should get onto it. But he still didn't get onto it, okay? Went off for Christmas on holiday. So come January, there was some big issues. And not only did the special, but Megan needed, to get her visa, which was $8,000. I said, well, what are you going to do about it? Like, I think he was looking at me going, well, you're going to pay for it, right? No. Okay. And then all of a sudden, he had to get serious about it. Okay. And so there was this realization of, and Megan's like, gets through the emotions of, you're my husband, you should figure these things out. And I'm sure there was a few fights going on there and everything like that. But eventually the penny dropped. Okay. And so they've been out there working their brains out, and we've had some discipling, they gave us special and everything like that. And of course I went up to him and said, okay, you're giving me a special, how's your money? Okay, yeah, I'll pay for the visa. Because honestly, when you get missionaries, you have to pay for their visa. Okay. But I use it as a discipling opportunity for Solomon. All right. Because he's, suddenly, and now he'll give 8,000 special and we'll pay for the visa, as which what we should do. But what's the point here? Is, if you repent and give your heart, things flow easily. Yeah. But it's about, have you given your heart? Luke 18:27, Jesus replied, what is impossible with man is possible with God. Peter said, we've left all things we had to follow you. Truly, I tell you, Jesus said, not one of you has left home, wife, or brothers, or sisters, or parents, or children, for the sake of the kingdom of God, will fail to receive many times as much in this age and the age to come. What is Jesus saying? It's impossible to outgive God. Even if you lose your wife. I mean, that's a heavy one, right? Even if you lose your wife, it's impossible. I think about God will make you more fruitful than you have been up to this time. It's what God does for a job. John 15:2. He cuts off every branch of me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so it will be even more fruitful. So it is actually impossible for you to not become more fruitful unless you fall away. It's actually impossible. Because God will get in there again and again and go, I'm not fruitful, don't worry about it, God's got it. But I'm useless, don't worry about it, God's got it. But I was only fruitful once, God's got it. So Manny and Effie were fruitful, I think, for the whole ministry, only 3 people last year in the north. Or whatever, 4 people or whatever, but not that many. And yet already this year, they've outgrown that. Because God's, well, let's just trim them up. It's their year, let's trim them up. Now you're forgiven. I think Luke 6:37, forgiven, you'll be forgiven. It's strictly like people go, I don't know if I'm forgiven by God. Have you forgiven everybody in your life? Yes, then you're forgiven. God will work and is working in life no matter how much you struggle and refuse to believe it. Romans 8:28, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. I love, for so many years, many of you have been with me, we had the challenge of Naomi. The Mongolian, she came, she gave her heart to the Hong Kong mission team. She was kicked out after a month. Then she was kicked here. Then she was kicked to the Philippines, then Cambodia, then to the Philippines, then to Samoa, then to the Philippines. And now she is married and leading the Cambodia church. Wow. But that was 5 years of real struggle. Yeah. I love that, I was telling the World Sector Leaders about Daniel. So Daniel gets baptized and, should have really stayed here for 3 months over Christmas. And, those sorts of people, they can fall away. And yet, so he's in Zambia on his own. And there's an ICOC guy that initiates with South Africa and goes, I want to get restored. So the evangelist from South Africa goes up to Zambia, gets hold of Daniel, says, let's go study with this guy. And it's his uncle. It's his uncle. So now the 2 remnant people are Daniel and his uncle. And then, I saw him at church. The son said, I know it's mind-blowing. It's my uncle. So that's going to stay with him for the rest of his life. Yeah. So we should never look at Daniel and go, this kid's not special. This kid is there's something special about this kid. He may not flourish here or that. Maybe he will. But this kid is special. You don't go to that length for just nobody. Yeah. You know what? That's true of every single disciple we have. God has worked powerfully. We may not know it like the story of Daniel. Take a long look at the miracle goal for this year and how you're really doing. You need to get stuck in to your ministry and their goals. Okay, it's all been about special and fruit, but what about their goal? What about their personal victories? When you see people buy a car, pass a course, study the Bible with somebody all the way through. I mean, MJ, she's lost weight, she's studied all the way through, she's going to be through. There is a glow to that woman at church, and that wasn't always so. That wasn't always so. You know, I think you can have baptisms. We had 3 in a week. I remember when we would go, when the missionary would have 1 a month. We're like, oh. We had a baptism. I remember the first weekend we had 3 in a weekend. I remember that, 2 on a Saturday and 1 on a Sunday. Z and all that, and I was like, we just like, I remember it was like, you remember like, we had 3. We like, guys, we had 3, but I mean, there was this exact like, we had 3. We've never, I mean, there was just this enjoy, and now we're like, yeah, we have 3 coming this weekend. I think my friend Steve Allen had no baptism on his mission team in Brisbane. Went on January, no baptism in November, and in November he had 7 baptisms in his Bible talk, including his mum, his dad, and his brother, who weren't even living in that city. God can do whatever he wants when he wants, when you get faith. You know, you be that story that everyone is talking about this year and next year. Philippians 3:13, brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it. But one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining towards what is ahead, I press on towards the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. You know, you've literally got to be born again. I'm like, you know what? Could we send out Fiji at the conference? Why not? The only person that's stopping it is me. Right? Why not? I could send all you over there. Start with a whole other bunch of people. You see, faith is about you imagining the impossible and not worrying about how to make it happen. We've got to attack our ministries like we are living a joke. So that people go, mate, your faith is laughable. Not, we're laughing at what God can't do. When was the last time somebody just laughed at what you did? In just that hysterical manner, I just cannot believe what you just did. That's what our ministry needs. Needs us to empty our bank accounts. Needs to just go out there and proclaim, I'm going to be fruitful myself 3 times this month. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to go out until it's done. If Paul can be fruitful twice in a month as a working man, why can't a staff member be doing it? You know, you've got to be joking, yeah. From your point of view, but not from God's point of view. There are no excuses accepted. You know, and the facts change when your faith changes. So get faith today. Amen.